My name is Tessa Klein, 32 years old, and on September 14th, 2025, my parents publicly humiliated me in the middle of my wedding ceremony in front of 182 people because I refused to move the date to fit my younger sister's once-in-a-lifetime resort trip. My throat went tight so fast I could barely breathe. My fingers started shaking around my bouquet like it was the only thing holding me upright. And I remember thinking, don't let your knees buckle. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Then my dad did it. He stood up from the back row like he owned the room, not like he was about to abandon his daughter. He didn't whisper. He didn't wait until after. He cut right through the officiant's words and said, loud and flat, "We're leaving. You made your choice." My mom followed him, crying in that performative way she always used when she wanted an audience. The entire pavilion froze. I heard chairs creak, a glass clink somewhere, and then nothing. Just that heavy silence that makes your ears ring. People turned their heads in slow motion. Someone in the second row actually covered her mouth like she was watching a car accident. And in that second, it hit me what this threatened. Not just my wedding photos or my pride, but my future. The money they'd promised, the inheritance my grandparents set aside, the way my parents controlled the family business reputation in our town. If they could do this in public, they could do anything behind closed doors. I stood there in my dress, $3,450 I paid for myself, feeling like a child being scolded in front of a classroom. 2 front row seats with my parents' names on them sat empty, like a spotlight aimed directly at my humiliation, and I could feel eyes flicking from the blank chairs to my face, waiting to see if I'd fall apart. What no one in that crowd understood was this. My husband, Evan, hadn't just watched my parents sabotage me for months. He had found something with dates and numbers, and a paper trail my parents would have sworn didn't exist. And I decided, right there with my bouquet trembling in my hands, that I was done swallowing it, done apologizing for having boundaries, done being the reasonable one they could punish into obedience. Because at exactly 8:23 p.m., everything would flip. It started the way I used to think all good things started, with a moment so sweet you assume the people who love you will protect it. January 6th, 2024. Evan proposed to me at Lady Bird Lake in Austin, right near the trail where the water catches the late afternoon sun. He did it quietly, just us, a little velvet box in his shaking hand, and a ring that had belonged to his grandmother for 58 years. I truly believed my family would show up for me this time, not as critics, not as managers, but as parents. I wanted my mom to hug me without conditions. I wanted my dad to say, "I'm proud of you," and mean it. I wanted my sister to be excited without making it about her. That was my dream. Simple, embarrassingly basic. My parents had the kind of power that never needed to announce itself. My father, Graham Klein, owned 2 appliance showrooms and a regional service company, not flashy like mansions on TV, but enough that everyone in town knew his name. My mother, Marilyn, ran the family image like it was a second business. She spoke in compliments that always came with a hook. If she smiled, it meant she wanted something. And then there was my sister, Sloane, 29, the sun my parents orbited. She wasn't evil, she was just assigned importance. She called herself a wellness creator, lived off brand deals, and somehow every crisis in our house had always been about protecting her momentum. My parents paid her rent, her flights, her retreats. They called it investing in her future. I called it training her to expect the world to move. I can give you 3 snapshots that explain my childhood better than any therapy session ever did. First, when I was 15, I made varsity debate and begged my dad to come to a tournament. He said, "I'll catch the next one." and never did. That same month, Sloane got a minor role in a community theater show, and my parents threw a dinner party like she'd won an Oscar. Second, when I graduated college, my mom handed me a card and said, "We always knew you'd be fine." 2 weeks later, Sloane hit 20,000 followers, and my dad bought her a new camera for her career. Third, at Christmas 2019, my aunt complimented my job offer, and my dad laughed and said, "Tessa's steady. Sloane's the star." Everyone heard it. Everyone pretended not to. So why did I still hope? Because every once in a while they'd soften. One warm phone call, one proud-sounding sentence, and I'd grab onto it like it proved the rest wasn't real. I wanted to believe love was hiding under their control. I wanted to believe I could earn unconditional by being perfect. By May 2nd, 2024, Evan and I locked our date and put money down. We signed the contract at Cedar Hollow Ranch, a hill country venue with oak trees and string lights, for September 14th, 2025. The deposit was $9,200, non-refundable. We paid it from our savings, and I remember Evan squeezing my hand as I signed, like we were stepping into something sacred. That night, my mom texted me, "The venue is beautiful. That date should be fine." The words looked supportive, but something about "should" made my stomach pinch, like she was leaving room to rewrite it later. Then, on June 11th, 2025, my mom texted, "Call me about the date." She called at 3:18 p.m. on June 11th, 2025. I remember the exact time because I was still at my desk, staring at the spreadsheet I'd been working on when my phone lit up with Mom. Her voice, when I answered, was syrupy and tight at the same time, the tone she used when she'd already decided something and just needed me to comply. "Tessa, honey," she said, "we have a situation." The situation was this. Sloane had just booked a $17,800 wellness retreat in Maui, July 30th through September 20th. "It's a massive brand opportunity," my mom explained. "She'll be collaborating with 2 international companies. This could change everything for her." I felt my stomach drop. "Mom, my wedding is September 14th. "I know," she replied too quickly. "That's why we need to talk about moving it. October would be lovely, or even next spring." I pulled up the contract on my laptop while she talked, my fingers suddenly cold. We signed in May 2024. The deposit was $9,200, non-refundable. Catering minimum is locked. We've sent save the dates to 180 people. The photographer's booked. My dress fittings are scheduled. There was a pause. Then came the moral pivot. "Tessa, this is about family. Sloane's career is taking off. Your wedding can happen any time. This opportunity can't." I swallowed hard. "So my marriage is flexible, but her Instagram isn't?" Her voice sharpened. "Don't be sarcastic. She already paid the deposit. If she cancels, that money is gone." "And if I move my wedding?" I said carefully. "We lose at least $14,000 in change fees, maybe more. That's not counting flights for guests who've already booked." Money, apparently, was suddenly irrelevant. "This isn't about money," she snapped. "It's about support. It's about not being selfish." Selfish. The word landed like a slap. By 6:42 p.m., my dad called. No softness, no syrup, just steel. "Your mother says you're refusing to compromise." "I'm refusing to reschedule 180 people and lose thousands of dollars," I replied. "You're choosing a date over your sister," he said flatly. "That says something about you." "It says I signed a legal contract." He exhaled sharply. "Respect matters more than contracts. If you can't make room for family, don't expect family to show up for you." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Are you threatening not to come?" I'm telling you, actions have consequences. His tone went colder. If you don't move the wedding, don't expect our financial support, and don't expect us to sit there and pretend we approve. We'll teach you what happens when you put yourself first. There it was, the sentence. We'll teach you a lesson. My hands were shaking, but my voice didn't. The date stays, September 14th. I'm not moving it. Silence. Then he said, "Then you're on your own," and hung up. The fallout was immediate. At 7:05 p.m., my mom sent a text. "Since you've chosen this path, we will not be contributing to the wedding. The trust fund was meant for a family-centered event." At 7:11 p.m., another. "I hope you're proud of yourself." The trust fund. The $120,000 my grandparents had set aside for the first grandchild to marry. Me. Suddenly, it was conditional. By 9:30 p.m., both of them had stopped answering my calls. My messages showed read, no reply. I sat on the edge of our couch in silence, my phone heavy in my lap. Evan came out of the bedroom, took one look at my face, and sat beside me. "What did he say?" he asked quietly. I repeated it, every word, especially the part about teaching me a lesson. Evan didn't respond right away. He just stared at the wall for a long second, jaw tight. Then he looked at me and said one sentence that changed everything. "If they're threatening you with money, Tessa, we need to find out where that money actually is." For 47 days, my parents didn't speak to me. 47 days of silence after a lifetime of control. I counted them because each one felt deliberate. I called my mom 6 times between June 12th and July 3rd, straight to voicemail. I texted my dad on June 18th. "Can we talk like adults?" It showed read to 14 p.m. No response. By the 4th of July, I understood the silence wasn't distance. It was strategy. I tried to fix it anyway. On July 7th, I sent my mom a long message. "I don't want this to ruin us. I just want to get married on the date we agreed to." Delivered, not read. Meanwhile, Sloan posted 22 countdown stories about Maui. Packing reels, brand tags, big things coming. My parents liked every single one. They hadn't liked a single post about my wedding. When my mom finally called on July 29th at 8:02 p.m., her tone was icy calm. "We'll attend," she said, "but don't expect smiles. You chose this. Humility matters, Tessa." The word humility again, over and over like a leash tightening. "We won't participate in family photos unless you apologize to your sister." It wasn't about dates anymore. It was about control. Then came the sabotage. On September 6th, 8 days before the wedding, I received an email from Cedar Hollow Ranch. Subject line, "Clarification needed." The coordinator, Elise Ramirez, wrote, "We've received multiple inquiries from someone identifying herself as the bride's mother regarding postponement options and cancellation penalties. Please confirm your intentions." My heart started pounding as I opened the attachments. 3 emails, all from my mother. August 20th. We need to discuss moving the September 14th event to 2026. August 28th. The bride is emotional and not thinking clearly. As parents, we're trying to protect her. September 3rd. This wedding should not proceed on this date. Please call me immediately. I felt physically sick. She hadn't just threatened not to come. She'd tried to cancel my wedding behind my back. I forwarded everything to Evan with one line. "She's trying to shut it down." He came home early that day, laptop already open before he sat down. "Okay," he said quietly. "Then we stop reacting and start verifying." Evan works in corporate risk analysis. Numbers are his language. That night, he logged into public filings, property records, and, most importantly, the trust account paperwork my grandparents' attorney had filed in 2019. 3 days later, on September 9th at 11:17 p.m., he called me into the living room. "Tessa," he said carefully, turning the screen toward me, "you need to see this." The trust account statement from January 2025 showed a balance of $120,000, exactly what my grandparents had left. Then came a line item dated June 6, 2025. Withdrawal, $75,000. Recipient, Sloan Klein. Memo, advance distribution. I stared at it, uncomprehending. "She's not even engaged," I whispered. Evan nodded. "And according to the trust language, the funds are designated for the first grandchild upon marriage. That's you. They're trustees. They're legally required to act in your best interest." I felt heat rise in my chest, then something colder settle over it. He clicked again. Another transfer dated July 25th, 2025. Amount, $14,600 from my father's personal account. Memo, Maui extension plus excursions. The timing hit me like a physical blow. 3 days before my mom called to lecture me about humility. They hadn't been short on money. They had redirected it. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I thought I'd cry. Instead, I felt clarity, sharp and steady. "They were never teaching me a lesson," I said slowly. "They were covering their tracks." Evan closed the laptop gently. "We don't just have hurt feelings anymore. We have documentation." My hands stopped shaking. "What do we do?" I asked. He held my gaze. "We don't confront them privately. We let them walk into that wedding believing they still control the narrative." I understood instantly, because September 14th wasn't just our ceremony anymore. It was leverage. And we didn't just have proof. We had a plan for the night of September 14th, 2025. September 14th, 2025. The ceremony began at 4 p.m. under the oak canopy at Cedar Hollow Ranch. By 3:45, guests were seated, 182 chairs in white rows, soft acoustic music playing through hidden speakers. I stood behind the barn doors with my bouquet, breathing slow, while Evan waited at the altar in his gray suit. 2 front row seats were reserved with ivory name cards, Graham Klein and Marilyn Klein. They were empty. People noticed. I saw the glances, the subtle head tilts, my aunt whispering to her husband, someone checking the back row like maybe my parents had slipped in quietly. They hadn't. At 4:12 p.m., right after the officiant asked everyone to be seated, the side gate creaked open. My parents walked in late, deliberately late. My mother in a pale blue dress, dramatic enough to compete with mine. They didn't take the front seats. They chose the last row. The tension was physical. The ceremony moved forward anyway. Vows, rings, applause. I didn't look at them once. I kept my eyes on Evan. Then came cocktail hour, and at 6:58 p.m., just as guests were moving into the reception hall, my father made his move. He walked up to me near the bar, within earshot of at least 20 people, and said, loud enough to carry, "You still have time to fix this before you embarrass the family further." I met his eyes. "The only embarrassment tonight is yours." He scoffed. "You'll regret this stunt." I didn't flinch. "No," I said calmly. "You will." At 8:20 p.m., after dinner plates were cleared and the DJ announced speeches, Evan stood up instead of the best man. He walked to the microphone with his laptop already connected to the projector we'd rented for childhood photos. "Before we continue," he said evenly, "there's something we need to address." A click. The screen lit up. Slide 1. A scanned excerpt from my grandparents' 2019 trust. The clause highlighted, to be distributed to the first grandchild upon marriage. Slide 2. A bank statement dated June 6, 2025. Withdrawal, $75,000. Recipient, Sloan Klein. Gasps rippled across the room. Slide 3. Transfer dated July 25, 2025. $14,600. Memo. Maui extension plus excursions. Evan's voice never shook. While Tessa was told she'd receive nothing unless she moved her wedding date, these transfers were made from the trust established for her. Someone audibly said, "Oh my God." Slide 4. My mother's email to the venue. This wedding should not proceed on this date. Dated September 3, 2025. Slide 5. A screenshot of my dad's text. If you don't move it, don't expect us there. The room went silent. Not whispering, not murmuring. Silent. My father stood up abruptly. "This is inappropriate," he snapped. Evan didn't raise his voice. "What's inappropriate is stealing from your daughter and calling it discipline." My mother's face had gone white. A cousin near the back started crying. My uncle muttered, "Jesus, Graham," under his breath. 3 of my dad's business associates quietly grabbed their jackets and left. My aunt stood and said, "Is this true?" No one answered her. Evan closed with one final slide, a simple breakdown of our wedding expenses, $54,300 total, paid entirely from our savings. "We didn't want revenge," he said. "We wanted the truth documented." He stepped back. For 5 long seconds, no one moved. Then my uncle began clapping, slow at first, then louder. One table joined, then another. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. My father walked out without another word. My mother followed. The DJ hesitated before asking softly, "Should we continue?" I took the microphone. "Yes," I said. "We're going to dance." And we did. By the next morning, it was everywhere. By 9:07 a.m. the next morning, my phone had 63 unread messages. Group chats, cousins I hadn't heard from in years, screenshots of Facebook posts. Someone had uploaded a shaky 2-minute clip of Evan's presentation to TikTok at 12:14 a.m. It already had 48,000 views. By noon, it was over 200,000. At 10:32 a.m., a local reporter emailed asking for comment regarding allegations involving misuse of a family trust by local business owners. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The documents were speaking for themselves. On September 17th, 3 days after the wedding, we met with a trust litigation attorney named Michael Reyes. Gray suit, direct eye contact. He reviewed the statements, the trust clause, the email attempts to cancel the venue. After 40 minutes, he leaned back and said, "This is breach of fiduciary duty, clean and provable." We filed on September 22nd. Claim amount, $120,000 restoration plus damages and legal fees, totaling $187,400. My father called once after being served. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short. "You're destroying this family." What he meant was, I wasn't protecting his image anymore. Lines were drawn fast. My uncle texted, "Proud of you." My aunt sent flowers with a note. Truth matters. 2 cousins blocked me. Sloan posted a vague Instagram story about toxic energy and jealousy, then disabled comments when people started asking about bank transfers. Mediation happened on October 28th, 9 a.m. to 12:40 p.m. We sat in separate rooms. I never saw my parents' faces. Their attorney pushed back at first, claimed it was a misunderstanding and a family allocation. Michael slid printed bank statements across the table and said calmly, "The allocation contradicts the trust language." By noon, they agreed to settle. Full $187,400 wired within 5 business days. Written acknowledgement of mismanagement, no admission of criminal liability, but a signed statement confirming improper distribution. The wire hit our account on November 4th at 3:16 p.m. I stared at the number for a long time. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like closing a wound properly instead of pretending it wasn't bleeding. The fallout was quieter but real. My father's company lost 2 commercial contracts within a month. Online reviews mentioned family ethics. Nothing catastrophic, but enough that control slipped. Reputation cracked. Sloan lost nearly 40,000 followers in 6 weeks. Brand deals slowed. She never apologized. She just posted less. We used $62,000 from the settlement as a down payment on a small 3-bedroom house in Driftwood, Texas in February 2026. Nothing flashy. White siding, a pecan tree in the yard. The first night there, we ate takeout on the floor because our furniture hadn't arrived yet. And for the first time in my life, I felt steady in a way that didn't mean invisible. One evening in March, while unpacking a box labeled "Important Documents," I found the copy of the trust clause again. My grandparents' signatures at the bottom. They hadn't written it to create leverage. They wrote it to give freedom. That was the difference. I realized something I wish I'd understood at 22, or 15, or even 30. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They are clarity. And clarity makes people who benefit from your silence very uncomfortable. Family isn't proven by who shares your blood. It's proven by who respects your autonomy when it costs them something. My parents tried to use money to manufacture obedience. They called it humility. They called it consequences. What it really was fear of losing control. Evan never once asked me to choose between peace and truth. He stood next to me and chose both. We haven't spoken to my parents since mediation. They mailed a baby gift after they heard, through relatives, that I'm pregnant. I returned it with no note. Maybe reconciliation will come someday. Maybe it won't. But here's what I know now. Love does not demand that you shrink to fit someone else's comfort. Respect does not require silence. And the family you build, with honesty, protection, and shared courage, will always be stronger than the one that tries to own you. On September 14th, 2025, my parents thought they were teaching me a lesson in obedience. What they actually taught me was how to walk away with my dignity and build something better from the truth.